Okay, in this tutorial, we're going to be looking at a Miller's Ale House. This one is in Severville, Tennessee, and it's a new site plan request. So we're going to walk through the steps of how we go about doing one of these. So what have we have been provided is a CAD file. This is the CAD file. The area that we're looking at is this area here. They also provided a PDF that a developer did. It looks something like this. And you can see the developer's idea is to lay out in this general location with our millers. And then they'd like to have what they're saying is a QSR. It's basically a fast food restaurant or a quick serve restaurant. And you can see it's divided by a property line here. So what we are being asked to do is there's an existing Golden Corral. You can see it on the aerial here, and they're going to just scrape that off and start fresh with this site. And they want to do a layout with the millers in place of it. And the developer is showing on the concept the millers, which is here, facing the facing 66 Highway 66, and they want to do this and keep the quick service restaurant remaining if we can. But the Millers would have to get up to 130 parking spaces on our property here. So if we can't get up to 130 spaces, then they want us to just blow this out and use the entire thing for the Millers. So we're going to put a V1 Millers Proto on the Golden Corral pad facing Highway 66, and we want the Florida room on the south side. Now you can see here the north arrow is pointing up, so really we're looking at it more like this. So we're going to face this direction, and we're going to put the Florida room down here, which is what it looks like they're doing here. And then we're going to show this fast food restaurant on here if we can get the Miller's site up to 130 spaces. If not, we're just going to use the entire parcel to do it. So that's the goal for this. So the first thing that we want to do is look at our template files that we have, and we have a Miller's template file, and I'm going to put it in our folder. You can see here, this is our template, and I'm just going to take the name of our project. We don't have a job number for this one yet. I'm just going to put it right in here. So this is how we typically name our jobs. So we're going to open this file up to get started with. And as you can see, our title block and all here. So we're going to flip over into model space. And now we're ready to get started here. So what we need to do is take this CAD file that the developer sent us and clean it up and get it the way we like to see them for our backgrounds. So first thing I'm going to do is just cut and paste all of this. Looks like it was a clean cut. And then paste it in here. Alright, I'm going to turn off the little marker. And then let's take a look and see what scale it is. This has likely been done in surveyor's units. A lot of the times they are. Yeah, you can see the width of a parking space is only 9 inches. So we work in architectural units. So I'm just going to scale this whole thing up by 12. And now the width of one of these spaces should be 9 feet, as you can see there. You don't always have to do that, but you always do want to check because you want to make sure your drawing is 1-to-1. And coming from surveyors, often it's not. So the next thing we want to do here is clean all of this up to the way we use them for bases. So you're going to look for things like property lines, setbacks, easements, all the main important things that are going to sort of affect our layout. Everything else is going to be ghosted back to a sort of a neutral layer or a screened layer. So I'm just going to start with the property lines. These obviously are the property lines. You can click them and look at the layer name to check that. PL, that's probably a property line. So I'm going to isolate that layer. And I'm going to go ahead and explode all this just in case it's polylines. Just select it all, and we have layers set. We start them all with GHA. For now, that's going to change soon. Okay, so we have a property lines. I usually start off with property lines adjacent. Turn all the layers back on. Let's isolate that again because they've got other property. We want all this to be by layer, by layer, so that it looks kind of like that. See, here's more property lines over here. Let's explode them. We'll go ahead and get all these to by layer and then put those on our GHA property lines adjacent. Alright, any more? That looks like that might be it for this one. I'm not, what we would typically do is, looks like these are doubled up here. So I can just erase one of those. That one looks like it's doubled up. The idea is that we're just cleaning this thing up so that when we're done, everything is pretty and clean and looks nice, aesthetically pleasing. Okay, and we are doing preliminary plans here, so a lot of this information isn't necessary for what we're doing, but some of it is. Now, I don't see any setback lines or easements or anything like that. There's a billboard sign here. That's probably important. They may not want to tear that down. We're going to keep this existing road the way it is. A lot of the times we'll turn these off and put our own dimensions in, but we can leave them in if we need to. I'm going to do a couple of quick checks just to see how far they're staying off the property line. 8 foot, 6 foot 10. It's nothing really. 7 foot 4. Okay, because this is not really anything specific, they are going to scrape this pad. 6 foot 1. We'll probably just go in and do our standards on this. And since this is so far set back, usually our standards would be a 10-foot green space in the front and then 5 foot on the sides and rear. Since this is already within around 5 feet of the property line or pretty close to it, we'll probably just stick to 5 feet all the way around and just redraw all of this. There looks like to be an existing transformer there. Okay, so you just want to take note of all this stuff. These things, it's just probably some utility or drain or something going on the site. For our purposes, is doing a preliminary. A lot of this stuff isn't really important to us, so we can clean these things up. I'm gonna say we can go ahead and clean a lot of this up too, because we're just gonna redraw this the way Miller's likes it, and that's the biggest key to learning these draft layouts, is learning how the client likes it, how they like their layouts. Okay, so so there's no other things to really change layers on. So for the rest of this drawing, we're going to want to come into our properties and select. Okay, you can see our GHA layers start here. So we're going to leave 0 alone and def points and all these CAD tools. Leave those on everything else. we're going to change the color to 211, which is a magenta color. And that's before here, so we scroll down after GHA and get the rest of them at the bottom. 211. And then we can select all this and just make the colors by layer. And you want to make these default so that nothing is thick like that. You will get some things that don't quite change over, some trees and things here, and that's okay, but the main gist of it is that you want the majority of your background layer just to be this magenta color, so everything that we draw will be bolder and it'll pop out more. That's kind of the idea of it. So now that we've got this cleaned up, what we want to do, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of get rid of these. Might leave. We'll come back in and write track 2 in. They're not even really on the developer's plan that they gave us. They're not even showing those, so I'm not really worried about that. They'll replat all this stuff at a later time. Okay, and we could probably even mess with this a little bit if we needed to, but I don't think we're going to need to in this case. All right, so we're going to want an aerial image on this. So let's go to insert, set location from a map. And let's see, where are we going to go? This is going to be on Highway 66. Tennessee. See if we can find it from there. It's Allensville Road. What is this, Douglas? There it is, Allensville Road. All right, so you can see that's the Golden Corral that's sitting there. And then that's looks like a hotel or something back in here. So this is the right spot. So for here, I'm just going to right click and put our marker right there. Let's see, we want this in inches. I'll choose foot. Next, and we were right here. North is this way. There we go. And we're pretty close to being on target there. So I'm going to move all. And then I'm just going to come in here and see if I can't get things a little closer. Sometimes these things aren't perfect, but it looks to me like our rotation is off slightly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do it. Rotate, previous, and this, I'm going to choose this as my base, reference from here, and then let's come down here and just kind of bring this around like that. See, that's landing pretty close there. Move previous. We're getting really close. I'm thinking it's like this. And, you know, rarely does these things ever come out perfect. If I lined it up with those, I guess it's possible they could have changed their curb lines because this matches up better with the parking layout. That's a little off, but all of this stuff looks really good here. So I think I'm going to go with this. And I'm just going to assume that either this is a little off or that they've moved their layout because that really lines up well with the parking. Okay, so we'll go with that. Now at this point, we are going to want to see all of this in our title block. So let's go ahead and make sure. You can see here in the title block, typically we like to see the scale at 1 to 60 for these, if it works. And the Millers uses a larger title block size. I believe this is 11 by 17. Let's check it real quick. Yeah. Yeah, foot 8 is. Yeah. Okay. So 11 by 17. Okay. So that seems to fit pretty good in here. So I'm going to go ahead and just size this up the way we would want it to fit on the screen. And then we'll go in our geolocation and turn the map aerial on. That looks good. So we'll go ahead and capture that viewport. And then while we're doing this, let's go ahead and capture a viewport for a overall view. So I'm going to go ahead and move and copy, move it to the end. And I'll just call this 1A. And I'm going to double the scale of it basically. Zoom 1 over 1440 XP. So you can see that's going to bring us out. Let's get that aerial on. Looks something like this. So let's capture that. And that's also going to put us at 120. So we go ahead and do that. Now, one other thing to prepare this is to go ahead and put these, well, easier if we grab them. Go ahead and fade them at 40. Whoop, missed it. Yeah, okay, so there's 40. And this one we will put on aerial. And this one we'll put on aerial far because it's further out. So those are our two aerials. We can actually go in here and turn that off now, and we can have our aerials in our background. So we're going to need those for the end result. Right now, I'm going to go ahead and layer these off, get them out of our way so that we can figure out our layout. Okay, so that's about it for the prep section of it. Now let's get in here and start drawing this. In some cases, we may have wanted to keep some of these as existing paving. On this site, we've been told that they're going to scrape the whole thing. So, you know, we can just go ahead and get rid of this stuff. So let's go ahead and just, you know, a lot of this stuff is just going to be redone because they're going to scrape the whole site. So we'll get rid of this. And, you know, we could probably even relocate these light poles. We'll probably put our sign back in that same general location. So we may want to try to keep these curb cuts in the same general location also. So let's do a quick cleanup. Oop, that was a polyline. I'm going to go ahead and just explode it so I can keep it on where that curb cut was. Nah, that's just a note. Don't really need that anymore. Alright, I'm going to explode that. I like to kind of be a little cleaner with these things. Some of these surveyors are like exact to what's built there, and you know, we'll clean that up a little bit. Okay. So, yeah, there's a little bit more up here. Let's clean all of this up. if we need to come back and grab these light pole locations later, we can bring them back in from that original CAD file that we started with. We're probably going to be moving that transformer. They usually put it on their pad. Okay. I'll go ahead and get rid of all these. We'll go back. We'll come back in and show our own corners and site dimensions. There's a specific way that we show these plans that they're used to looking at in their books. So I'll usually really go in and redo all this stuff. I'm going to leave that there because most likely it will remain. A lot of times they won't go in and tear those big poles down. Sometimes they do, but they didn't mention anything about it, so we're just going to leave it alone. Let's get rid of that. And that circle. That's part of the finalization, is to come back in and put these circles on, and that's a clean slate to start with. So, starting out on this, we are going to use a Miller's. I'm going to find my blocks for it. Miller's block V1 Proto. So I'm just going to drag the drawing file in and put it like this, and then I'm going to take that and put it on our building layer. There we go. So we're going to be facing 66, and then this is the Florida room down in here. They wanted it to the south, so it's going to be something like this. Now, in order to place it, we're going to want a 5-foot green space all around the edges. So I'm going to offset 5'6". Be sure and add the extra 6 inches in so that we know we're taking into account the back of the curb when we get in there. Let me just double check some of these spaces. We know they were 9 foot. Oh, we're getting some weird dimensions. Yeah, they're probably 9 by 18. So I'm going to offset 18 feet like this. And that's about where the drive aisle is going to be. So I'm going to take that and put it on our draft layer. Where is it? Draft. Default. Alright. Instead of making all these default, let's make them bi-layer. And when you're in your layers palette, when you're changing those layers, okay, we don't want to change the CAD tools. We can also come over here to the line weight and make those default so that those all go back to thin lines instead of being bold. Yeah, and then we can see the thickness on our draft lines. Alright, so that's where our drive aisle would start. We're going to have 24-foot drive aisles going around the perimeter. Alright, that does look like it kicks at a little bit of a different angle there, does it? I'm just going to check it here. That's pretty close. I'll just keep what we've got here instead of breaking up a bunch of separate lines. Alright, so I'm going to put a 10-foot radius going around the pad. Like this. And then on here, we're going to want to get parking here. It's usually most efficient to park the perimeter of the site first, so I always start with that, and then get the building worked in there. So as you can see with the developer's layout, they're basically just starting in a pad and then working their way down from there with double bays. So we're going to try to do the same thing. Obviously, it looks like theirs is a little smaller building or something. So we're just going with what we've got. All right, so there's that. On out in front of that, you want to allow for a 7-foot sidewalk. I'm gonna go 7'6" for the curb and the sidewalk, and then we like to have a 5-foot green space like that. So when I do these, I basically just offset 12'6". So I know I want to keep that much room in there. This building, I want to align. I'm going to do an align and align it with the front here. And I'm going to go ahead and set my snap angle with that. Is that a radius? Let me list that. It is a radius. Okay. Sometimes it's easier to deal with these if the radius is real big like that. I like to let me extend this. Just draw a line. I'm gonna get on the draft layer. I'm just gonna straighten that radius out. So I'll go like that. And then I'll set it. We've got a lot of space, so I'm just gonna go 5 feet. And then 18 feet. That way we're straight. We got a straight line. And that's perfectly okay to do in a situation where it's that big. Go ahead and get our 10-foot radius there. And we can see where the building can push up to. So we can push this right up to that. I'm going to leave a little extra there. Maybe something like that. And obviously we're going to need at least a 5-foot. I don't think we're going to have room to get parking in front. If you try to put a row out here and then push the building back behind that, then our building is going to start going into the drive aisle and everything over here. So we're just going to get, let's see, 5'6", a little sidewalk across the front. And then this will push up to the sidewalk. Keep the doors out of the sidewalk. And then that should have enough room there. We'll have to modify the service yard a little bit, which is okay. I'm going to save that for later. So now I'm still in line with this. I'm just going to kind of line up about like this and draw a line. 12'6" for grass and sidewalk and curb. And then 18 feet is going to be where our parking is. And then 24 feet for the driveway. I always want to do those driveways first. And I'll just extend these on out. I don't think it's really going to be beneficial to try to change this much. They didn't on their last one either. So we'll probably just keep this squared up with the building and just come inside this sign right here and end it right there. Let's call that 18 feet. And that would be the end where our drive aisle would be. But let's see how these double bays lay out. So that would be a drive aisle here. I'm going to trim those out. And then 18 feet. 18, 24 feet. I have a feeling that we are not going to have room for the QSR. So I'm just going to keep going. 18, 18, 24 feet. That's another drive aisle. 18 feet. 18, 24 feet. So that'll just barely go around the end. So I'm going to go ahead and put 10-foot radiuses on these. I'm going to fillet those with 0 for now. That one's going to be really close to the property line. 10 feet. Typically they're 10 feet. 18 feet. So those will look something like that. Fillet. There we go. Those are 18 feet. 10 feet here, 10 feet here. So we're getting somewhere. 18 feet. That would be a row of parking there. Okay, so here's where our curb cut is. Let's turn this aerial on real quick. I just want to draw a line. See, don't like the way that is. I'm going to come off the front of their curb, and I'm just going to come out and line up with our drive aisle like this, just to give us something to grab a hold to. And then on this, I'm just going to come up the middle and 12 feet. So that's about where that drive aisle would be in its existing location. We do have to take into account a truck for this also. So I'm going to assume that our truck is going to, let's say he's going to come in here and turn this way, and then come in here and turn around this way, around here, and then probably back out onto Douglas Road and then down Douglas Road there. So we'll put another curb cut, let's say in line with this. 10 feet. Let's explode that so it doesn't mess up our layers. And then we got this one here. So we can do that again. Let's explode it. Fillet that. And then we'll just trim those back out. So for the truck, we need a much bigger radius. So let's plan for that. I'm going to get a little more extension out of those. So when that truck comes around here, we need 35 feet. So let's go ahead and get that in. So it'll look like that. And then we'll just get 10 on the inside there. And then we're going to want to put a larger radius here. We've got more width to the road here, so we may be able to, let's see what 35 feet looks like. Yeah, let's do it. 10 foot here. So that'll give us plenty of room for the truck to come in through here. Now we're going to need that here. 35 feet. Can't get it there, so we have to go back to there. And then here we're going to need the 35 feet as it turns out. 10 feet. And then yeah, 35 feet. We'll put a 10-foot radius there. So that's how you would do it if you're looking to create a truck route to go through there. You want to make sure all the inside radiuses have 35 foot on them that go around like this. So then he would turn here. So this is the inside radius. And then as he turned down there, that's the inside radius. Usually with a 24-foot drive aisle, a 35-foot inside radius is enough to get it in there, unless it's some kind of weird U-turn or hairpin or something like that. 35 feet usually does the trick. So on all other concepts, that's what we have to do to make these work. On millers, we have not been tasked to make sure these radiuses are all large like that. So I just wanted to show you how you do it for other concepts. On the millers, we're not going to worry so much about that. So I'm gonna back out of that to this point, and we're just going to do those like we would normally do at 10 foot, like this. It also eats up a lot of parking when you do that. But some concepts, that's a big deal. So, but for this one, we're just going to do it like this. Now you can see the way we do drafts for the larger concepts like this is we're not going to go in yet and draw in all these parking spaces. We leave it like this. We know that this is a row and that's a row of parking. This line just represents the head of a parking space. So all around here, so you can see we've got this guy. Let's go ahead and get this curb cut in. We'll keep it at that same angle, 12 feet. And that, probably slide that over a little bit. And then I believe this is the front of the curb here. And I'm going to go ahead and make sure those are exploded. And we'll put our 10-foot radiuses in. Sure is nice and clean if you trim those off right there. So that'll work for that. 10 foot here, 10 foot here. We'll keep that squared off. We're still missing our billboard. Pushing it a little bit, but I think that'll be fine. That's pushing it a little bit. Since we're not going to get any parking there, I mean, we could radius that off. Because technically that's 24 feet. But I think we're going to be pushing it on parking anyway, so let's see how far we can get our parking down first. And then we have another curb cut here. So let's come across here, 24 feet. That looks good. Alright, 10 foot. Okay, looks like it's this one. And this one. Alright, so let's clean this up a little bit. Alright. Trim those back. Alright, and then here, 10 feet. So it looks like that. Our parking is going to be, you know what, just 18 feet. So we'll have a little row there, here, 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 and here. Probably not going to get anything here. So I'm just going to break this out from under the sign. What are we going to get? A couple spaces there, maybe. 18. And we're not going to be able to push that property line like that, so we'll lose a couple there. And that's where, So you can see we're just showing the drive aisle, and then where that, like when the car pulls in, that'll be the head of the parking space. And for a draft, that's the way we want to see it, because they may want us to change it, and we don't want to have too much detail in there until we know that this is the layout that we're going to go with. So one other thing that we need to do is we're going to have to fix this service yard and make it work. We may want to angle this a little bit, and we can utilize some of this space here if we need to. So what I'm going to do is a ref edit, so that I'm editing the building, and I'm going to break this right here just a little bit. So now I can play with the service yard area here separately from that. And I'm just going to grab that, and this is really just a sort of a free flow kind of thing. I'm going to want to probably angle it away from like the main road up here. Sometimes they're funny about that. So let's just turn it at an angle. That'll make it easier for a truck to access it, being so tight like this. And we can bring it in, I don't know, maybe something like that. Okay, and then this is sticking out over the drive, so we can pull this in. I've got my snap angle set to that angle. And then I'm just gonna, let's move this in a little bit. And then we can just stretch this. You know, something like that. You want to be sure and leave plenty of room to walk through here. Then we can just refill it that. And here, let's come off of here a little bit and then just go perpendicular like that. And then I'm going to offset, and I'm going to pick that distance so that this is the same. And we'll just redraw those walls in there like that. And I'm going to match so they're on the same layer. And that will probably work. A little bit funky, but it works. So let's save that. And let's see on here. I'm going to set my snap angle here. I'll bring that out like that, and then we'll just come out from here. Actually, we probably want all of this down on the pavement side, so we'll come just inside the door here. Let's trim that. Let's see if 8 feet will work here. Yeah, that looks good. And yeah, we'll do the same thing here. So there's our service yard. We're going to want that 7'6" in front here, so see, we might need to break that off a little bit more. And if it's pushing it, you know, maybe we can get away with that, but that's going to be about where that is. Not enough room for any parking back here. That is basically the block out. I'm a little concerned with this corner being so close there. Let's just put like a 15-foot radius on that. Maybe 20. I'm trying to get it back to this, the spring line to come back to that parking, because it'll be about where that is. So let's try 20 feet. Yeah, that looks good. That pulls that away from that a little better. This will be okay. If we need a couple extra spaces, we can squeeze them in there. For most intents and purposes, that is the block out. This, like I say, I can tell just by looking at this that from here up, we are not going to have 130 spaces. So that's why I'm just saying, never mind the QSR. I can tell just by looking at it, it's not going to be enough. So they're going to want to go ahead and use the whole thing. So one thing we do want to do is make sure that we are delineating our property by putting it on our property line layer as opposed to this adjacent layer. So I'm just going to come and pick all these. Looks like we got a double line there. We'll have to come back and fix that and put it on our property lines, and that changes it to red. Let's get rid of that guy. And that changes that to red. All these other ones are the adjacent ones. And then this one, since it's in the middle of our site, let's just make it lots. And it'll be just a little bit different from that adjacent one. So that is the extent of the block out. Now, on this particular plan, they did want us to prove how many spaces they were going to get. So, and quite often they will want to know about how many spaces. So we would want to estimate how many spaces they're going to get. And the way we want to do that is just so that it's easy to delete later. I like to get on the miscellaneous layer and make it green. The height of this text is 720. Wait a minute. We're at 1 to 60. Scale factor for 1 to 60 is 720. So back up on the decimal one, that makes 72. So our text is 72 high. Height 72. And we'll just make this at a 0 angle. And I'm going to put an X here. And then on the annotate, I'll just make that large text. There it is, large. And then I'll write in our estimates here. So we know that our spaces are 9 feet wide. So basically, I'm going to come back and Z0 all this just to make sure everything is flat and not poking up into our Z-axis. And then we can just list this stuff. So, you know, your 41, we can pull up a calculator here and say 41 divided by 9. 4.5. So we're going to get about 4 spaces there. All right, let's check this one. That is 53.9. That's pretty close to 54. Let's just go 53. So 53 divided by 9 is 5. So yeah, let's just say 5. Nothing wrong with being a little conservative at this point. All right, this one. All right, we're 213.5. 213.5 divided by 9. That's 23. So we usually like to cut it off at 12. So if that's almost 24, it's 23. We're going to want to lose one for an island. So that's going to be 22. So put this here and say 22. Because we don't want to have more than 12 spaces. It's just a general sort of a prototypical rule is to have a landscaping island every 12 spaces. So that way they'll be right in the center here. As we're laying this parking out right in the middle, we'll have a landscaping island just to break that up. Okay, so this one, now we did trim this one down. So instead of using this line, I'm going to check this one. 97. 97 divided by 9 is about 10. All right, so we get about 10 spaces here. Down here, 9. There's enough for 2 spaces there. So we'll just make that 2. Here, here we have 60. 60 divided by 9 is 6.5. Okay, so let's just say 6. And then what's this one? 130. Man, there's just a little bit. Let's just say 131. 131. That's going to be 14, so we're over 12, so we're going to back off on that to 13. All right, 13. And then here is 98. So we'll get 10 spaces there. There's our 10. And then here we're at 49 and a half. 49.5. So 5 spaces will fit in there. Here. And notice I used this line instead of this one. The reason for that is because I trimmed this line down to where I know that's where I wanted it to stop. So that's really more of where my parking is going to be, is here. So we got 95. Yeah, we'll get another 10 spaces there. This on Miller's is the to-go door. You can see the bench here. So when we place our to-go spaces, we'll want to be sure and put them right here. Down here is 90. So there's another 10 spaces there. And then let's just check these. I think these are gonna be about the same. I don't think they're gonna step. 81.5. We're at about 9. So we'll get 9 spaces there. So that might step. We'll see what this one comes out to. 78.5. 8. Ooh, yeah, I think it's going to step down. So this is going to end up being only 8. Okay, so we better check these. 70. Yeah, that steps down to 7. And then this one, 67. Looks like we can still fit 7 in there. This one, 58. I'll say 58.5. 6. And this one is 55. It's over 6 inches, so I'll say 55.5. Yeah, that's another 6. So that pretty much estimates how many spaces we're going to get. One other thing to consider is going to be our handicap spaces. We're probably going to land in the range of between 100 and 150 spaces. That's usually what we're shooting for, which gives us 5 handicap spaces. And in this situation, I think this row right here is going to be the best spot for our handicaps. And then we'll have a crosswalk that comes across and ramps here. So if your spaces are 9 foot wide, when we lay them out, 5 handicap spaces, it's basically going to kill 2 spaces. That's the way the math comes out. So we can just change that to an 8. So by changing that to an 8, we're removing 2 spaces, which will allow us enough room to get all our handicaps in with all the walk aisles between them. And we know we'll still have 3 extra spaces after that, and which will total up 8, 5 handicaps, and then 3 regular spaces. So that just makes our count a little more accurate. So now we just want to come up with a total here. So we'll just pull up a calculator. Okay, I'm going to start at the top. there's kind of a trick to this because sometimes these get kind of weird trying to figure out how to do it. So I always start at the top and count around clockwise and then start going through the islands clockwise. So let's see, this is going to be 5 plus 4 plus 5 plus 22 plus 10 plus 2 plus 6, 13 plus 8, and then 10, and then another 10, and then 9 plus 8 plus 7 and 7 is 14. Whoop. 14. And then 6 and 6 is 12. So that's going to be 138 spaces. So yeah, we were right. It ended up taking the whole thing and we only got an extra 8 spaces. There's no way the fast food would have worked. Okay, so that is 138. Usually just grab one of these, scale it up by 3, and just say 138. And that is a draft. This is basically how we want to lay out the site, showing it in as few lines as possible so that we can decide whether or not we want to lay it out like this or whether or not we want to make changes. And then we can make those changes before we get into all the detail rather than, drawing all the detail into this thing and then coming back later and deciding, oh, we want to change the whole thing completely, So it really does save a lot of time. And when you lay them out like this, as long as you're adding your extra 6 inches in here and really accounting for your sidewalks and green spaces and all that kind of thing, this is really accurate, and we're probably going to come up right at within a space or two around 138 spaces for this, and everything should work the way it's supposed to. So everything I did in here is on the checklist. If you need an extra copy of the checklist, reach out to me and I can send that over to you. And that is basically it for this video. Again, this was just the prepping of the CAD file and then the blocking out of the site. So we'll continue on in the next one.